I want to share something that I found to be a really cool example of everything that we've talked about in the video so far. So we've talked about how your default nature is well-being, that's your natural state, and how anytime that you're not experiencing that, it's because there's thought in the way. Your personal thinking is floated in and kind of clouded up your view of your own natural default, always there well-being. And we talked a little bit about the nature of thought, that thought is always moving. We're constantly thinking, new thoughts are always coming in. And again, when that doesn't feel like our experience of things, when it feels like thoughts, some jumble of thoughts is right there and it just won't go away, we're doing that innocently, of course. We don't know any better at the time, but it's because we're attaching the thought and kind of grabbing onto them and holding them there. That's not the nature of the system. The nature of the system is that thought comes and it goes all the time. Thought's always moving. So given all of those things, there's something that I refer to as bouncing back, and it's sort of how we will very naturally, completely effortlessly get kind of bounced back to our natural default state really quickly and easily. And the more you look for this and notice it, the more you're going to see it all the time. So let me give you an example. The other night I was kind of annoyed with my husband about something really insignificant, something I thought he should be doing with our kids. Not a big deal at all, but I was kind of annoyed by it. And so I had a lot of thinking going on about that. I could feel my thinking. I was feeling frustrated and all of these emotions, just feeling the thinking that was right there. As the evening went on, I noticed that the slate would sort of wipe clear. So I was in my frustration and annoyance with him, and then suddenly I wasn't. Another thought would float in, or something would distract me, or whatever happened, and it was like the system resetting, which is exactly what happens. That happens to us all the time. And then I noticed myself thinking, oh, wait a minute, I'm mad at him. And I would drag those old thoughts back in and kind of stir them up and hold them right here and continue on with my annoyance with him. But as soon as I let that go and allow things to just kind of naturally occur, those thoughts really do float away and you will get bounced back. You don't have to bounce yourself back. You get bounced back, right back to your natural default, clear mind, peace of mind kind of place. Another example that I see this all the time with clients who are just really in their heads about some problem, and then you'll ask them and they'll say, oh, I've been thinking about this for the last 24 hours nonstop. And when you really kind of probe that, there are always times when something distracted them in those 24 hours or something else came along, or if they really look for it, they will always see how the slate was wiped clean, how they were bounced back. I was at my friend's mom's funeral not long ago, and she was, doing all the typical funeral things, talking to all the family members and being, obviously upset about everything. And then you'd notice her, after I was watching her from across the room at this point, you'd notice her kind of telling the story of how her mom passed away and all of this, and it was very sad. And then she'd start talking, the family member would ask another question, how's your job going? Or, been anywhere interesting lately? And she really would flip into this other mode where she was fine. And she would have a normal conversation. And then a new family member would come in and she'd feel like she had to kind of retell the story to that person about her mom. And she'd go right back into that emotion. And it's just so fascinating to me when we're so trained to believe that things on the outside, like a death, affect our happiness. But that when you watch it in real life, that's not the way it happens. You have evidence in front of you of it not happening that way. She was bounced back and her slate was wiped clean all the time, constantly in that day. And it was only when she would be reminded of her mom, or maybe she was dragging those thoughts back. We all have things like, I should be upset, I'm at a funeral, and things like that we cause ourselves to feel certain ways. And so there was so much of that going on. And this is not to judge any of that. It's just human. It's what we do all the time, but it's just a perfect example of our true nature. It's a really, really cool way to see that, our true nature is this clean slate, peace of mind. And when you don't grab onto those thoughts and you don't keep dragging them back in and you just kind of go with the flow, you are returned to that clean slate really frequently.